You are listening to the Giant Sports Show. Now, here's your host, Robert Wanick.
Welcome to the Giant Sports Show. Robert Wanick here at the Voice of the Valley. I'm going to be joined shortly by our consummate early riser 9 a.m. spot, Jeff Ralph, wrapping up the region runner-up performance for Husky boys basketball. So I just wanted to ask you right off the bat, if you could, how would you kind of grade this season? I mean, you don't have to give it a letter, but what are your thoughts on the season? Runner-up in the region, competitive game against number 1 Kindred, and just kind of ran out of gas against number 2 Grafton in that state qualifier game to finish it off.
You know, if you make the state tournament, it's probably an A, so I'd say B+. I mean, I thought our kids maybe, were slighted at the beginning of the year a little bit. You know, I think we were picked third in the region. You know, I don't think we ever cracked the top 5, you know, the poll thing, and you know, or if we did, then it seemed like we always had to play Kindred right after we got in the thing. So, but you know, that stuff, I don't know. I thought we really had a good season. I think our kids, I think they really responded to what we wanted them to do. I thought I think it started back when the season, you know, football got over and we started having open gym and 30 kids were showing up, you know, and if you're going to play in the EDC and night in and night out, you know, if you give it your best, you're probably still going to get beat. I think open gym's not the most fun thing to do, but when you feel like, man, we got a chance, and you know, our kids showed up there to get the season going, and I really thought the excitement just at open gym really, you know, kind of told me that these kids are going to have some fun in this league. And you know, we went 16-9. I think I look back at, you know, it was 2015 where the last time we won that many games. So, you know, and that was a East Region Conference, an EDC Conference championship team. So I thought just a great season. And you know, not making state, you look at who we had to go through. And we get Kindred in the region final. I thought, you know, played them as tough as we could, and then last Saturday Grafton, you know, they're good. I mean, they're good, and we did a good job on a couple kids, and you know, the big guy only had 6 points, and I thought we did a pretty good job on Baldwin. He got to the free throw line a little much in the second half, but we just had a hard time scoring in that game. But I think overall, a fun season, and I think a season these kids are going to look back on, and they had some great memories. They made some great memories, all those overtime games. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was just one of those years, I think, where I think our fan base was pretty excited, and I think the coaching staff was. I know Joe Caveney, every time he came in my office, he'd sit down and we'd talk a little bit, and he'd say, God, this is so fun. You know, knowing we have a chance every night. And I think that's how the kids felt too.
And I love hearing that they were at open gym. I'm a big OG guy because, you know, that's where they get to work on their individual game. You're going to have lots of structure and, like you said, kind of intense Coach Ralph at practice. But at open gym, they can really work on their game. And I think nobody improved more this season. The most improved player in my book would be Cooper Klosterman from all teams. You know, it's one thing for a kid to step into a starting role for the first time as a senior, but his fire and his confidence was just off the charts. To see a guy have a huge leap like that, how does that make you feel as a head coach?
Well, we go back to open gym, and Cooper's making threes in open gym. And, you know, we kind of knew the leader he was. You know, we've seen glimpses of that. But when he started shooting it well, I mean, it opened up so many things for us. You know, he actually ended up leading us in made three-pointers, shot 36% from three, which is pretty darn good. So I think he, you know, his leadership, number one, and I've said it before, he's the best teammate I've ever coached. You know, how he talks with the kids and how he's just a leader. Kids look to him for leadership when we talk about, you know, what do you want to do for pregame, or what are you going to wear for the game? And, you know, when a question was asked, everybody turned and looked at Cooper. So, you know, I think that says a lot about him, says a lot about what he did for our team this year. I think when he played well, we played well, and a lot of times the game would get over and you think, you know, Cooper didn't do much, and then you find out he had 7 points, 5 assists, and 7 rebounds, and He's always guarding a guy that's 5 inches taller than him.
Hmm.
So I just thought he was the glue guy for our team and really an important piece of it. And I would agree with you that his improvement really led to our team play that was so much better too.
And Cooper will have this same opportunity to step up on the varsity baseball team for his first full run as a starter this year as a senior. He's a pretty good pitcher. He had an ERA under 2 last year for the B Legion. Good hitter too. So just excited to see him
Yeah,
have that opportunity to seize
when
that
you think
moment.
about that, I don't know how many minutes he even played of varsity last year, and then to step in and I think maybe didn't start one game early where we thought maybe matchups would be better some other way, but once we got going, it's like Cooper's got to be in the game. I mean, he was our glue guy, and uh, I hope that this Cooper kind of rubbed off on Landon. I put Landon with him when we do our shooting stuff and the communication and all that, hoping that we'll have another guy like that maybe one day, and just a great leader and just a good kid too.
So going off of that, Landon Ralph, the sophomore, it was him and Jack Gilbertson. You threw them into the fire during the region tournament, and they really made some key plays. Not a massive role, but they made some key plays in some key moments. Gilbertson had a buzzer beater 3 before halftime, I think. Landon, I mean, he's Landon. He's going to bring some flair, and he also hit a big 3 versus Grafton. So what do you see out of those two moving forward? How did they handle that?
Well, I think number one we need some production from them. I think Jack, how do you put an eighth grader out there and expect them to perform? And I know Casey, Coach Materi showed me a picture of Jack at one of the early practices, and I think he probably grew 3 inches during the season. I mean, he looked small in the picture, and that was like one of the first couple practices. And honestly, when he went in the game, he was ready to play. I thought he was a good matchup for us with the Lillimon kid on him in the Grafton game. He could drive by and, statistically didn't shoot it great, but for an eighth grader to get up 6 shots in a game, in really a limited role, maybe about 18 minutes, I think he's going to be a really good player for us. He's got some work to do. The pull-up jumper's a little bit slow yet, but that's something that he'll work on and get better. But transition bucket and drives in the lane off the back iron and a couple open looks at 3 and when you're asking an eighth grader, that's a pretty big task, and I'm really excited to see what he does. And I think for Landon, um, finally started to shoot it well at the end of the season for us, and could rebound and can do some things defensively. Not afraid to foul, which he showed in the Kindred game, I think, and wasn't afraid to be physical. And we're gonna need something from him in the post for us next year. I kind of think maybe we're going to be spread out a little bit, but somebody's still going to have to guard the post. And, he might be that guy for us next year. And, hopefully he gets up to about 6'4", 6'5", but I don't know, his mother's 5'4", so I don't know if that's going to happen. But,
Yeah.
but, two really young kids who are ready to play. And I think a couple others coming. Carter Hockert's another one, and Jackson DeVries was good at times. He kind of ended the season sick and, really didn't play much in the postseason. But we got some good guys coming back, and, Landon and Jack are two of them.
We've talked about your star players leading into every story that we've posted this year and on-air segment, but Jaden King, you'll miss him. He'll move on. He's a senior. Before the season, you had discussed he's got to be more aggressive. He's got to be less timid inside. Did he meet that this year? Because he certainly he looked so much better to me and so much more aggressive.
Yeah, we talked about having a legitimate post threat, and this is the first time in a long time we've had that. I think Ethan could do that for us last year in some games, but I think Jaden could do that a lot for us, and we're certainly pleased with how he played. An all-region player, 15 points, 7 boards a game. Really, just he could take some heat off our perimeter guys, and I think when you look at the physicality and the size, a little undersized against it seemed like everybody has a 6'7" guy, but I thought Jaden really he was that legitimate post threat for us, and we needed that with all these good guards we have.
So good consistency from King. That's the
Yep.
thing, a dozen points or more every game and always hovering around the 8 to 10 board mark, it seemed. Consistency is the name of the game on the golf course, and that's where you're headed next. So if we can just wrap up, do you mind taking us through the golf scorecard? Who's going to anchor your boys' golf team, and who's in the mix for battling for the final spots on that varsity card?
Well, I think number one is probably going to be Bjorn Kubala. Michael Peterson really had a good season for us. Was on the verge of qualifying in one of the last tournaments and had a bad break and ended up missing it by a shot or two. I look for those two to lead us. Isaiah Brushert had a really good year last year, kind of figuring it out. Competitive golf is you're on an island every shot. You're all alone, and I thought he kind of figured that out last year for us. I think maybe Aiden Bone is a kid who has worked a ton on his game. As a junior, it'd be great to see him have a breakout season where he's consistently in the low 80s. I think he's capable. He hits the ball well enough to do that, and has been on varsity for a few years. So I think he's a kid that we're hoping can step up. And there's 4 pretty solid players. Jordan Jensen's another one who, he'd have a good score one round, and then the next day, it'd be 104, and just that inconsistency. And I think we're looking at him. Another freshman, Grayson Castee, the kid played a lot of golf in the off season. Another kid I think that can really help us. And hopefully there's maybe somebody else in the mix that comes through. And I think golf's it's your own game. You go do your thing and see what they come back with. So it's exciting to come. It's too cold for me to golf right now, but I think they've been out there hitting the ball around. And for me, the spring is kind of a relaxing time. Golf is a slightly less intense coaching sport than basketball.
Yeah.
So, we do work hard in practice, but I think once we get on the course, they're just, it's up to them to show what they do. And I think we'll have a really nice season.
That was Region 1 Boys Basketball Coach of the Year, Jeff Ralph, also the coach of Huskies Boys and Lady Huskies Golf. And once it warms up a little bit, you'll probably see him on the course quite a bit. I'll be back after a couple words from our sponsors on the Giant Sports Show, joined by Jacob Dodge of BW Storm Softball. Welcome back to the Voice of the Valley. I'm Robert Wanek on the Giant Sports Show, joined by BW Storm Softball head coach Jacob Dodge. Thanks for coming in today, Jacob.
You bet. Glad to be here.
And we kind of talked in the pre-show here that you guys graduate some girls. You kind of got a new look team. You lost McKenna Coolmo and Abby Johnson. Those girls are playing basketball and volleyball at NDSCS. Obviously, Abby Red Baron Bronson, her home run production, that's going to be gone. So who fills in the run production and the defense? Who are some of the faces that we should be looking out for?
Well, obviously, a team's going to look different this year. Like you mentioned last year, we had some very strong, powerful young ladies that could put it over the fence at will, and they just hit the ball extremely hard. So you never know what was going to happen at any given time. This year, I don't want to say rebuilding because we have a lot of younger girls that are really good softball players, and I don't think it'll be a physical thing as much as a mental piece. Just seeing if they can pull it together mentally and just have that confidence to know that they can step in. Obviously, we have Mia and Addie Dodge coming back, and Sid. Sid and Addie are very versatile. Jaylee Ernst at first base there. Jocelyn Reeby coming back. So we have girls with experience. We also have some very, very athletic girls that were on JV last year. And like I mentioned, we have some holes to fill, but I think we'll build their confidence as we get rolling here this spring, and we should be in good shape once season rolls around.
So we've got Addie Dodge and Sydney Roberts, both very good catchers, and that's kind of the backbone of the infield. You got to have a good catcher. They both play it well, but like you said, they're both utility players. Do you have a vision of how those two will be used this year?
Yeah, I do. I think depending who's catching, the other one will be at shortstop or third. With that being said, last year deep into sectionals, I had Sydney in right field, and when it came down to it, she made 2 huge plays that won us games. One catch at the fence, another one she threw a girl out at home. So just having that versatility with her and Addie, and depending on the needs of the game, I feel like I could put them anywhere.
And the pitching staff, Mia Dodge is at the top of the pitching staff. So she'll lead the way there. High strikeout pitcher, pretty low walk pitcher, and just gets a lot of weak contact. So even when she's not at her best, she seems to keep the other teams from scoring, which I would assume is going to give you guys a good chance, even in a rebuilding year, of being in some of these games. Is there anybody else you're going to throw out there on the staff that we should know about?
Yeah, Marley Mum, was a JV pitcher the last couple years, and she'd worked hard this off season. And we're going to have to get her some time this year. With Mia graduating, Marley's going to have to transition, into that role. And I think she's ready to give it a go. So I'm sure there'll be some, doubleheader games on the varsity games where she gets in the second game and just get her used to that pressure being in the varsity circle and help her be successful, as she moves into next year.
And can you tell our listeners a little bit about your relationship the last few years with NDSCS softball? I know you used their field to start last season when the conditions weren't so good at your own field, and then you've had some joint practices at the college. How has Coach Mike Elke and the program helped work with your athletes?
Yeah, I think it's, Coach Elke and I have built a relationship over the last, 3 years here, and obviously it's a win for us to have such a great program right in Wahpeton, and it really shows our girls, what they could be capable of, and kind of that work ethic and commitment that you need to put forward, excuse me, if you want to get to that next level. And Mike's been willing to have, his girls come out to our practice, so let us, join them at their practices, and his girls, they just have a knack for coaching younger ladies, whether it's at the camps or just informally. It just brings a lot of confidence to our program when you're able to work with those girls at the college level.
So the NDSCS softball team, defending national champions, ranked number 1 right now. Obviously great to get instruction from players like that. Let's talk a little bit about your own instruction and let people know what you do with Dodger ball. I'm guessing that's going to take kind of a back seat now that you're at the reins of the Storm softball, but how did that go in the off season running Dodger ball instruction?
So I didn't do a whole lot this year. I had some other things going on, but in the past I've given, instruction just in lessons one-on-one, whether it's softball or baseball. It'll start up again at some point, but, right now it really hasn't taken off just because of the busyness of 6 kids and coaching and everything else. But definitely something I keep on the radar, and I feel it's a need in this community, and people, they look to that instruction and they want their kids to get better. So it's just a matter of fitting it in the already busy schedule.
And the last thing that I wanted to ask you about, Coach, is when I look at local teams, I really respect a lot of the staffs and the depth that they have. We were just talking about the Cowgirls staff. I mean, anytime you can have Brenda Dahlgren as an assistant, that's pretty good. And for you, you've got a couple capable coaches on your staff too. Can you tell me who's helping you out and what do they bring to the table?
Yeah, so, my assistant was Coach Wilson, now Coach Kruger. Obviously a great volleyball coach, but I don't know if everyone knows that she actually played softball in college. So she has a wealth of knowledge there, and just having that relationship with the ladies. Sometimes, I think I'm getting through to the girls, and she just backs me up and says it a different way, and we kind of get our point across. So it's kind of nice to have that other person in the dugout that can help me with those situations. Mark Lull, the JV coach, Mark plays fast pitch, all summer long, and his dad's a head coach down in Hankinson, so he's been around the game his whole life. It's really nice for me to have 2 very capable people, and if I'm not there for whatever reason, or if I need them to step in, I really don't have any worries. We're on the same page 99% of the time, and they work well with the girls, and I think we all have the same vision with the program.
And we'll close with this. Who are the teams that you expect to be towards the top of the section? And who are some teams that you look at as very competitive games this season that people should get out and, hey, we want you to come see that matchup?
Yeah, well, most of the people that followed us know we had 5 losses last year. We were 17-5. 2 of them came from the state champs, DGF, and they're going to have their pitchers back and pretty much their whole team. So they're going to be very competitive. Our other 3 losses came from Holly, which we beat once, but they beat us in sectionals twice to get to sectional finals. And they were young. I mean, they had 9th and 10th graders. So it's going to be a battle. Barnesville is right there as well. Barnesville knocked off Sauk Rapids, lost to Sauk Rapids in the bottom of the 7th last year, deep in sectionals. So, I mean, they're a great team too. So you look at the top 4 teams in our conference with DGF, Holly, ourselves, and Barnesville. you know, there'll be very competitive games. It's just a matter of who can show up for 7 innings, you know, as we move through the season.